Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I move the motion in my name. On the face of it, my motion for debate today is a motion about bus services, about route cancellations, about inflation bus and fare increases, about a lack of investment, about a failure of leadership. But at its heart, it is a motion about people. People who rely on public transport system to get them to where they need to go. People stranded on routes cancelled in the interest of shareholders. People being failed by flawed approaches to bus services that hands public money and control to private interests. In writing this motion, my intention was to instigate a balanced debate, something that I hoped members across this chamber could get behind regardless of their party affiliation. Which is why I am so disappointed by the amendment put forward by the Government. An amendment that serves only as an example of the blinkered approach that has led to the sorry state of bus services across this country. So let us, Presiding Officer, have a look at the motion and what the Government have removed in their amendment. An amendment, I would have to say, that will get passed today with the Greens. So let's have the discussion about who is actually interested in environment, who is interested in getting people out of cars onto the buses, because it's certainly not the Green Party in this place. So the motion in my name basically says that it notes recent bus fares increases across the country that are hitting during the cost of living crisis. You'd have to say to the Government, the fact they want that removed, are they in denial, or do they acknowledge that there has been a major increase in bus fares across the country, and do they accept that that's a barrier for many people who are on low incomes trying to use buses? Further notes that on the back of route cancellations we are seeing across much of Scotland that are isolating communities. Is the Government seriously saying that there's not been route cancellations? Because in every community across Scotland, I'm sure on the SNP and Green benches, in your communities just as much in our communities, we have seen bus cancellation after bus cancellation putting people off. Indeed, last week in West Lothian we saw two young people explaining how they would have to both spend £40 on a Sunday to get a taxi because of the bus route cancellations that had taken place. We saw young people telling us about taxis at £20 because the first bus in the morning had been put off and they would not get to their work. So is this Government denying that there has been routes that have been cut? They certainly seem to be doing so. So the problem with this motion, let's look at the amendment and what the amendment says. Firstly, it says, notes recent to the end, supports the vision outlined in a policy prospectus, equality, opportunity, community for public transport system that is more accessible. Well, it's not more accessible. The people that are suffering the most are the poorest, because this motion, the amendment, goes on to talk about the under-22s, talks about the free travel for the over 60s, but there's a group in the middle, people who are generally on much lower incomes, that's why they're not in their cars, and those are the people that are being denied access to these buses because of the costs. You really could not make this up, Presiding Officer, in terms of the Government being in denial. It is not just that the SNP Government are in denial. It is that they have no idea what to do to build a transport system that will deliver for all the people of Scotland. One of their members said at the weekend, the SNP are in office but not in power. I would go further and say that they have no vision, a clueless Government, high on rhetoric with no idea how to meet the big challenges facing Scotland at this time. With record numbers of buses axed during their time in office, a number of routes being axed on the rise, it is clear that the SNP's broken system is failing thousands upon thousands of public transport users in Scotland, and they have no plan to fix it. Indeed, Presiding Officer, I would repeat, they do not have a clue how to even begin to fix the problems that we have in Scotland. Scottish Labour will launch the biggest reform of buses in a generation, ending the SNP broken system and handing power and control of routes, fares and services back to the local communities and back to people who depend on those services. This is the direction of travel in which we need to go.
The member is just winding up. Mr Rowley, you do need to conclude at 6 minutes. You can take the intervention, but you then will need to conclude.
Okay, so I would say I apologise to the Green member for not being able to take the intervention, but maybe he and others can start to examine their conscience and ask themselves why would you deny that people are being excluded from buses because it's too expensive to use the buses? Why would you deny that many people are being excluded from buses because there are no buses running in their area? What is the point of a free bus pass if there are no buses to actually get on? So the Greens and the SNP Government, they have no vision, no clue, and will fail the people of Scotland when it comes to transport time and time again. I move the motion.